out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get about your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out.
Welcome to episode, get ready for this, 50. Look at that, we even have special effects. I am surprised that we got to episode 50 because I remember the first episode where we did a live show. I think I was feeling very nervous and I thought of imagined it would probably end at show 3, but I'm delighted that we, despite COVID, and although we're still remote and still not back in the studio, that's coming back soon, I hope. I couldn't be more delighted than today to welcome Sedge Beswick from Scene Connects, and we'll talk more about Sedge and her agency shortly. But first, I just want to thank a few people. These 50 episodes wouldn't have got here today without a lot of help from a lot of people. First of all, I haven't mentioned them in a little while, but Wirehive, who got us all up and running originally with the technology, to Martin Oswick, who helped us massively set up the with Simon Green, the studio and all of the video editing and everything we did, to Caitlin, our producer, long-suffering producer, who's been working for us fully remote and hasn't actually been into an office or anything yet. And to my sidekick, Peter Hall, who's not with me today. Unfortunately, he is tied up in very important business today. But nevertheless, that's not a problem. And just a couple of last minute thank yous, mainly to Abby for organising all of the episodes, and also to our sponsors, Forecast, because as most of you know by now, because I repeat it every episode, we run all of these episodes as an Agencynomics, our community, as a not-for-profit social enterprise. It's our way of paying it forwards and helping the now, next, and future generation of agencies. And we without them, they help us massively with the financial contribution and cost of running everything. So we're truly grateful for that. And just so everyone's listening today understands and knows, we have rewritten Agencynomics. 50% new content. We are going live on September the 7th. We're having a launch party. The book will be coming out shortly after then. If you enjoyed the first book, it's essentially the same book, but we've updated everything for a post-COVID world. So we'll put in the show notes the link address if you want to pre-order the book. And yes, exciting stuff. And the book's great. I've got to say, I say it myself, I can say it about your own book, can't you, Sedge? It is a really, really good book. Like, I reread the book, having not read it for a couple of years, and some of the updated stuff is amazing, but actually there's some wonderful new content in there. And I know anyone who enjoyed the first book, and many people did, you'll love the next one. So, Sedge, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Can't believe I've got number 50. It's a great one.
Yeah, you're special guest for a special number. And so I guess the best way to start really is just tell us a little bit about your agency and what you do, first of all.
Start with the easy ones, yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm Sedge and I run an agency called Scene Connects. We are an influence marketing agency, but we basically exist to make sure that brands do it properly. And by doing it properly, it's proving and showing that you can drive return on investment when working with influencer marketing.
So do you do both sides? Do you represent and work with influencers? No, you just work with the brands.
Yeah, we are solely with the brands. We don't want to be biased. So if we had a roster of influencers, celebrities that we worked with, we obviously would always try to weave them into a campaigns because an agency's got to make money. But also for a very long time, there was only 2-3 people in the team. I don't have the patience to talent manage. I am way better suited to kind of the brand side.
Yeah, because I guess that's what it is. It is talent management, really, isn't it? It's almost like being an agent, I guess, on that side of the business. Whereas on your side, I guess you've got to help the brand with their marketing objectives ultimately.
Exactly.
Yeah, great, okay. And how many in your team now? Because you've grown quite quickly, haven't you?
Oh, this question. I think we're 54. I have about 5 or 6 people who are working notice periods at the moment. That's the UK team. And then we're 4 in the US with about 5 roles open at the moment as well.
So I love the way that you say think, because I always say that when we got to 50 people and people said, how many your team? I could never answer it. I was like,
so glad you said that. 50. Oh God, it panics me.
You find though, once you got to 50, there's always one person in the team's name you don't know anymore. Because I always found there was always one person that walk around and go, who's that person again? Whereas up until that point, I could remember everyone's names really well. I
haven't got to that bit yet. I did have on one of the girls' first days, I had forgotten that we'd interviewed her and offered to her. So she rocked up on her first day and I was like, hey. And I remembered meeting her and I was like, what are you here for? She was like, the job. And I was like, yeah. I forgot to make sure someone sorted your laptop and your email and all the rest of it. But touch wood, to date, I'm okay on names. And
you're 5 years into the journey now, is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a really, really great success story to go from startup to a 60-odd person agency in 5 years. Has it been a straight line or has it been a bit of a roller coaster?
It's always a roller coaster. I don't think anyone could ever answer that question.
It's the leading question, but I kind of like half knew what the answer would be, but I just wanted you to say it just to assure everyone listening that there is no rose-tinted glasses. Yeah, path of, utopia that everyone goes to.
No, I think that's the fun of it, though. You think you've got your head around it, you think you understand it, and then the next challenge comes, or, it's 10 more people in the team, and then the agency changes. So you have to reassess how to maintain the culture. Like, there's never not a challenge.
Yeah, no, you've got some fantastic clients as well. So, when we first spoke a couple of months back now, I was because you remember I spoke to you thinking you were a startup. And and I'd gotten you confused with somebody else who'd introduced you to me with somebody else, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're actually a pretty big agency, and more importantly, your clients. So can you tell us who you work with as well?
Yeah, anyone, eBay, Nike, Panasonic, Mars, so Skittles, Malteser. We do 3 The Phone Network. I have to think of people.
A Snickers campaign recently.
Oh, did you see that one?
I did, yeah.
Oh, it was a good one. I enjoyed that. Obviously biased, but yes, I did.
Yeah. And I like the way that if you eat a Snickers, you can learn to dance better, basically, and avoid tripping up. I'm going to let everyone go to the website, and we'll put the website in the show notes. But yeah, do go and check out some of the case studies you've got, because I think they are great to see. It does really, I think it does show the great work that you guys create in your agency.
Wow, good. That's what we wanted to do.
So, questions for you. I wanted to understand, I know that you started to vlog not that long ago around the subject of lessons and mistakes. And I think, Agencynomics, Agencyphonics is all about kind of sharing knowledge and trying to support and help other agencies on that growth journey. What can you think of some of the big lessons that I guess that you've learned along the way on the journey, the things that really have helped you get breakthrough in particular?
Yeah, I think probably from a breakthrough perspective, it's quite well, I found this, you might not have found it, but it's quite intimidating to interview and to meet people that you don't know exactly what they do. And so it's always, I was at ASOS forever. I could talk about ASOS's social all day, every day with my eyes shut. And yes, I'd hire people in the team and we'd train them up. But all of a sudden I'm, there's data analysts, strategists, project managers, videographers. And I guess my main lesson was like, how quickly can you hire people that are significantly better than you? And the team, I'm biased, the team are brilliant, but when it comes to their niches, they really are like the best in the industry. And my kind of imposter syndrome kicks in of like, how can I develop them? How can I support them? But that's actually not where they need the support. Like, they know their game when it comes to what they're good at. And I guess my lesson is kind of taking a bit of a step back, appreciating that they're good at what they know they're good at. And equally, what I'm good at is different to what they're good at. And then you can kind of really build that army versus trying to have a team of people that you're at the top of your game and they're working up towards it. And that really allowed us and enabled us to grow quite quickly.
Yeah. So do you think that in the early stage, it may not happen in your case, but some people may as well take on people maybe, their nerves are taken on people that know more than them. It's almost like they want to make sure they know more than everybody, so they will take on junior. I don't know if does that really happen. I'm trying to think whether I've seen examples of it, but I do take the point that you should always try and recruit the best person for that role that money can afford, I guess, as well.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. And then there's, you can still develop them and support them. We have an internal and an external mentor scheme. So internally, you get matched with someone that can kind of take an area where you might need support, might need development. And equally, if we have, we're hiring at the moment for a head of insight and data, I can, scrape by a C in my maths GCSE. Like, I'm not the person that is going to be able to step their game up a notch. But I know people from my ASOS days where we had more data than sense, and I can start then matching people to kind of, again, make it feel like they've got the support, make them feel like they've got that kind of community, someone to go to kind of challenge them as well.
Yeah. I love the fact that you came from client side into having an agency, because I think when that happens, I think you get much more empathy, don't you, from the other way around? Did you have to work with agencies in your role before?
I had never even worked with an agency before I started.
Had you not? Oh, right.
No. I was like the most underqualified person for the gig.
So, but in a way, has it helped you then or not then now when you go back and you work with clients? Have you had an advantage from working with clients? Because a lot of people who work client side struggle to go into agency side. I've had a lot of people who go from brands into agencies and they leave because they don't understand how chaotic it can be, and lots of multiple projects that simultaneously going on and demanding clients.
I actually, when I was at ASOS and I was like at Red Bull and stuff before that, I always said, I'd never be able to go agency side, because the brands I worked with, I loved those brands, like eat, sleep, everything. I knew those brands through and through. And the thought of kind of splitting my time, splitting my headspace was quite terrifying. Yeah. And it was definitely a happy accident, me setting up the agency. And you're totally right. Like, for me now, I do think that there is an added benefit to clients because I speak their language. I understand also what they need, because they'll be like, my such and such, my CMO, my chief brand officer, whatever it might be. And then often you've kind of met those personas, you've worked with those personas when it's brand side, and you can make sure you deliver against what they want. And, we've had some mental briefs where someone's CMO literally just wanted to go for a breakfast with a celebrity, but their accounts person was like, well, I want more money in influencers, and I know that I need to prove return on investment. So you're like, well, I actually know that person, so we'll nip it out. I'll expense dinner on a breakfast, I think it was, on your account, but let me focus on the right people, because actually this will work. And it did work. We're still working with this client like 3 years later, but it's those weird working out those personas, what those personas need and what success looks like for them. And it does help.
I think you guys are in a maybe it's not just the space that you're in. Maybe it applies to any agency owner that has a strong personal brand, as well as one that maybe works with celebrities. And that is that, so back in the day when I had my agency, I had a few celebrity clients, and there was a couple of interesting things that happened from it. So the first thing was, I think people believed us more in a really weird way, because they thought, well, if celebrities work with you, you must be good at what you do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Total sense, yeah.
Well, I think it's always a good thing to have. I mean, we had Andy Murray as a client. They're like, well, if Andy Murray's working with you, they must be really good at what you do. And But the first thing was that. The second thing was that the clients who got starstruck, who knew you worked with certain people, and if they could meet them, that was like almost like it gave us an edge competitively. And I heard I won't name names today, but I heard another a well-known influencer-led agency in the UK tell a story recently where he was up against another agency that had an equally strong influencer running that business, and it really appeared that the brand, the client, was more interested in meeting those two people and getting selfies with them than it was choosing the best agency. And then they probably were trying to choose the best agency. That's probably unfair. But the celebrity impact definitely seemed to play a part a little bit. So you mentioned then about a CMO wanting to have a lunch with a celebrity. There must be quite a good advantage, I think, to your agency because people get to, if I was a brand, I'd be thinking, I might get to meet some of these people who might be my heroes, or, does that happen? Am I living in a fancy world?
A little bit. I think it happened more earlier on when people were still trying to work out what influencers and celebrity marketing even was. I definitely think the space is sophisticated and matured, and also people are just busy, right? So actually, yes, they'd love to go for lunch with Andy Murray, but then when it comes to it, or it's that whole thing of like, don't meet your heroes, kind of being in that situation.
True.
Like, I'm a Blink-182 fan, met Travis Barker. All he wanted to talk about was vegan restaurants, and I eat meat. I was like, this wasn't the like diehard tattooed rocker chat that I expected to have.
Yeah. So that's true. That is true, actually, about don't meet your heroes. I've seen that a few times happen when, especially, I was in not that he was necessarily my hero, but I was in a restaurant in LA, and in fact, should I tell the whole story here or not? Do I avoid it? It's your interview, but I ended up basically in the men's toilets next to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? But then when I went back to the table, he was sitting behind me, and this little kid went up to him and said, "Hi, Arnold, could I have a picture with you?" And he went, "No, I'm having my breakfast." And he sent him away, and I was like, oh no, you horrible person, And then I kind of felt empathetic to Arnold, because I thought if he'd said yes, he probably would have had 100 people in a restaurant go up to him, never would have eaten his breakfast with the guy from Gladiator or whoever he was with. But I think, but I do think it's interesting that the celebrity experience is certainly an angle, because I talk in the book about fame clients and how we have certain clients who want to look good in their job, who want to succeed in, like they've got their own careers to look after as well. But also, when they work with an agency, they want an experience. They want to work with an agency that it's not just, I'm working with you because you're going to do a great job, because that is important. But sometimes it's so important to have a good experience and to make it a bit more interesting and not just about the work. Mm-hmm. So I could see actually having an agency where you're involved with celebrities being quite attractive for a lot of those. Yeah. And it works both ways as well. I think, Christmas as an example, how many celebrities do like my 12-day of Christmas giveaway? And actually we can then go to our brands and say, oh, just so you know, this celebrity is going to do this. Would you like for free to, promote your brand through his competition? And then we can also say, just so you know, this usually would cost 10 grand, 15 grand per post, but it is a value exchange, and the brand might not have those level of budgets, but they've got an amazing product, or they might be a startup brand. And that's when it also gets fun, that it, again, talk about the word community, but it works outside of just those social platforms as well. Yeah, I love that. I think that adding value in those ways is always a very smart thing to do if you can leverage things that you have through it. So yeah, it's great. So you've got great clients, you've had great success. Any other lessons you want to share with us? I mean, like in terms of scaling, I mean, how did you win all those great clients? Have you got a magic formula, or wouldn't we all love a magic formula? Good black book, or I had it drummed into me from a very young age to, like, you network, you keep up your relationships. And I've always done that throughout my career. So I was super lucky, set the agency, had no idea what it is that I was doing or what I wanted us to become. Like, hadn't done a proposition, hadn't done a creds deck. And my first day, someone who used to work with ASOS was like, hey, do you want to come and meet such and such? And I was like, sure. And then that week, my first week of having the agency, I met 3 people. And I was like, look, we can do a lower rate. We can work out what this is together, what the market kind of needs, what's lacking. All I knew is that every other influencer agency was not doing data properly. And then you hire your first person, and then you're going, crap, how am I going to find laptop, pay for an office? Or obviously these things have kind of changed, obviously with COVID. And there were the days when I was the one on my hands and knees cleaning the office when we moved into it because we couldn't afford a cleaner. And then all of a sudden you start to build that momentum. You start to understand what people buy. So you know exactly what to sell, what to focus on. Every MD I've met is better and different at other things. I am aggressively passionate about this space, but also slightly broader in terms of like proving that digital marketing works and that it is a performance-based channel. And so what I then had to do was build the team that could do the things that I'm terrible at. And the list of things I'm bad at are
is far longer than the list of things I'm good at. And that was like the finance, the operations, chatting to procurement, working through sustainability policies, plastic policies. And that's for me when it kind of really clicked into place and we could really build momentum and allow me to focus on the network, building my client base. And again, I still kind of have that one brand buzz where like I'm a Nike diehard through and through. We work with Nike. That comes off when you're in the room.
Yeah.
And the same for like e-com. I worked at ASOS, so I could actually go in and talk to the M Brown group. And I think having passion, understanding people's businesses and putting yourself in their shoes around what their challenges are versus always trying to be, you know, a bit swingy to kind of get that lead is really, really important.
Yeah, I love what you just said. I think you're so right. I think if you can be a true advocate, an evangelist, you know, if you can understand your client's business and your business well enough, and you know how to bring the two together for their advantage. I mean, that's what clients want to hear, you know, and I think, and they probably pick up on that enthusiasm and the fact that you're so passionate about what you do and their products. And I think that's a really good lesson for people out there. And I think that's why it's so important to, because not everyone knows this, you know, early on in their agency journey. They don't always know where they're going to focus because, you know, that kind of swingy, you know, that kind of like, you know, being something for everyone. I started that way. It took me a while to win my first sports client and then realize that I could really see how to engage sports fans, you know, socially. And I could see that angle. But, you know, I think everyone's got to work towards finding that real passion about what they do, but also the types of businesses they want to work with or people they want to work with, right? So I think what you just said, that's definitely the secret sauce there, bottled up. And it's a great advice for anyone out there listening to definitely go and, you know, and do you know what I do? You know that Venn diagram? I put it in the book at the beginning about, you know, when you find your purpose or ikigai. Have you ever seen that before? Where it's like, what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? What can you get paid for? I think whenever you do that exercise, that really always helps you find, for me, that sweet spot and stuff. So I love that you've got that, and that's clearly at the heart of your success. So do you do a lot of public speaking? I know you do your vlog and stuff. Do you do a lot of speaking and stuff? Like what other marketing do you do as a business typically?
Yeah, we definitely PR and talk about the agency and talk about the space that we are in, because it's not around like giving stuff away for free, which I've had people in the past go, God, you just give too much. Like what happens? I always think within social more broadly, like what you knew yesterday isn't relevant tomorrow. So actually the fact we're talking about this today, things will evolve. There will be another influencer within that space. There will be another metric tool. There'll be another third party to do brand uplift studies with. So yeah, for me, and kind of like the agency purpose, the agency ethos from a marketing perspective is like, say what you would say to your mate in a pub. Don't go in with the complex jargon. Don't confuse people or try to intimidate them by your knowledge. Like, yeah, I can get dirty and talk, you know, all sorts of coding and kind of like nerd levels. But actually, what's the benefit of that? We want people to feel like they can buy this and understand it. So I do quite a lot of speaker events, but I also get other people in the team, the account directors, because they are living and breathing the stuff. In some cases, more so than me. We also, have our cat businesses TikTok, try to practice what we preach and kind of being where our customers, but also where our influencers are as well.
Yeah. And you wrote a couple of books as well.
I did.
I love the review. I saw on LinkedIn, someone written a recommendation and said something like, you didn't just write a book on influencer marketing, you wrote the book on influencer marketing. I thought that was really nice.
I actually think I know who that was, which I think was, he's still a client actually, a guy called Kenyatta. But it's very different to you. You're like, my book is epic. It's still relevant. Read it. We've updated it. Mine, I'm a bit like, oh God. But the first one was 140 Twitter lols. And it was, at the time, Twitter was a very leading platform for brands within social. It must have been 13, 14. And ASOS had a couple of profit warnings. I had gone from, working 12, 13, 14-hour days to all of a sudden the marketing spend was pulled. It was very much like, let's just play things safe. And I love work, and that's probably one of my biggest problems. Like, because I just enjoy working. I enjoy being busy. I enjoy kind of the research and the thinking and learning and developing myself more. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to write about these accounts that I follow, or the things or the lessons off the back of it. And I self-published, and we actually, ASOS ended up selling the book on their platform for obvious reasons. It was nice and easy to do, but I enjoyed it. It's just incredibly out of date. And then I did the same thing for Instagram a year later with 100 accounts to learn from.
I guess, yeah. I mean, and as I always say, even with Agencynomics, like it got out of date quite quickly last year. So that's why we've updated it. But it is a very niche book, and it's not, a massive business book in the business world. In the agency world, it's pretty well known now because, well, there aren't frankly that many books on the subject. But for you, why did you write? So it's quite a big deal writing a book, isn't it? I mean, I find it quite a stressful process. Did you?
I would say they're far more like toilet humor.
Right. Okay. So it wasn't like it was. Okay, I get the idea. Right.
So as an example, we'll talk about James Blunt and the fact that trolling is a huge issue within platforms, but actually he kind of controls the conversation.
He handled it, yeah, exactly.
And then it's got an example of his tweet, and then it talks about different ways in which you can handle trolls. But it's like each segment's like 250 words, so it wasn't. I would actually say like 70% was so easy, and then you get to like the 30% of areas where I'm not as confident or interested in personally.
What impact did that have when you wrote the books? Because clearly you did that. So did you do both of them when you were actually working at ASOS?
I did one when I was working at ASOS, and then I did my second when I was on gardening leave before setting up the agency.
Okay. What impact did that have, writing those books? Did it have any impact on your life or not at all?
Yeah, it definitely did. I definitely had a lot of more job opportunities coming through LinkedIn. People kind of going, well, if she can write about this subject, then God, imagine what she could kind of do if she worked here. And equally, it was all I still meet people who've gone, oh, I read the book, or I've had influencers who've gone, actually, that really helped me get going when it became to the Instagram one. So I guess the trust piece in terms of like my legitimacy within this space has kind of definitely helped as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's always interesting because I think the thing about writing books is it's quite a hard thing for many people to do. Like they say, everyone's got a book in them, but it's really. I mean, I can't tell you how stressful I found it just rewriting Agencynomics. It's been really, really stressful because it takes every spare second you have, and it's not an easy process. That's why I would say if people are honest about it. Maybe there are some people who just find it really easy to do, but I'm not sure.
It's not at all easy. It's not at all easy. My other half says, I was going to say, my other half says I'm the type of person that just shoots from the hip. So if I've said out loud I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Whereas I was chatting to a mate earlier who also runs an agency, and he was like, and he said, "Oh, I've sent you something in the post. It's a bit of a congratulations on the business turning 5. It's a bit of a like, hope your wedding goes through because we've had to move it because of COVID and it's next month." And he was like, but also just saw it, thought of you. And I was like, oh, you struck me as the type of person that would just send me your book in the post and ask me to sub it and ask before you published it. Yeah. And he was like, I've been working on that book for 4 years, mate. Like, I'll never finish it. Yeah. So it's, again, those different, like, I've got an idea, but actually sitting down and putting pen to the metaphorical paper, it is a different gig. And for me, the stuff I found hardest was like, how do I put what's in my head visually, because I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not a creative, into a cover that would then articulate the book, or like the title killed me. Yeah,
I know. I mean, I think I'm at the stage now where we are literally on the final typesetting. It's like the last part, and we, you get into conversations over what typeface and what size, and like you think it's done and it's still not done, or there's another image missing from somewhere, and but yeah, I still think it's a worthwhile exercise once you go through with it, because I think it can add, as you say, it helps reinforce, I think, your trust and your expertise. And again, it just kind of people, you can demonstrate more your expertise through it often. So yeah, and so that's interesting. And then you just mentioned something a minute ago that I wanted to ask you about. You talked about sort of keeping up with the trends and the way things are moving. And before we started today, I was just telling you the story about how I was just got back from holiday, and when I was on holiday, well, in fact, two things really. Firstly, it's the first time that I didn't take my phone with me, and so I recognized I was getting tired, getting head fog, and it's been a really, really grueling, 14, 16 months for us, at Cactus, and so. First of all, actually, the break from Instagram was really good. I mean, I quit Facebook a few years ago, but I do find like maybe it's just my personality type because I'm quite addicted to my phone, and it's like I just found myself having 2 weeks away from social media. I've almost fallen in love with it again, if that makes sense. Like I needed the break to get back into it again, and so. But I do think it is healthy to do it. But I was looking at my kids' time usage and looking at. Like when I look at, let's say my generation, people, I'm actually just turned 50. So I'm like, oh no, I'm in bloody 50s now. But people in the sort of 40s and 50s category who are typically, maybe Facebook, maybe Insta first, we could probably put WhatsApp in the mix now, potentially as a communication channel. But in terms of social media platforms, probably not so many using Snapchat, and probably not so many using TikTok, maybe some, but not so many. Again, some on Snapchat as well. But then when you go down to sort of the different age groups, it does change, doesn't it? And I noticed with my son, who's 16, growing up, he's pretty much lived on YouTube, I would say. But like I would say, YouTube was 80% of his social media. Instagram, it seems like all the kids get on it about 11, 12 or around. It certainly did with my two. But what was interesting was I sort of saw for the first time that, Snapchat for them, Snap was basically well in excess of actually anything else. Like 75%, on the time on the phone compared with then Instagram dropping off. Like it was the number one, it's now number two. But in fact, with my daughter, it's TikTok's now number two and Insta's number three. And my son, it's like almost on the cusp of flipping to TikTok number two. So I'm guessing in the next 10 years, I know there'll be new platforms. I know we've seen things starting to come through, but it's going to change, isn't it? Because my daughter only uses Facebook to check whether her grand's tagged her in anything or uploaded pictures. As a 19-year-old now, she that's the only reason she uses it, to make sure that she's not got any dodgy pictures of her on there. But she's like, Facebook, she goes, guys, how does anyone use it? She says, like, whereas people in their 40s going, how the hell does Snapchat work? Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say, my question, people who listen to this show a lot know that I talk a lot about the now, next, and future. But it strikes me that you guys must have to have like almost one eye on this, because it looks like it's going to change very quickly with this next generation coming through. Am I right? Or are you noticing that? Or
that didn't surprise me at all, because again, I think from a generational perspective, sounding like a dinosaur. But it is that, like, I'll just WhatsApp away, won't really think about what I'm writing. But it's that constant covering yourself that no one wants that screenshot. You can't really be held accountable for what it is that you're saying. And I'm like the, what's that film? 21 Dresses or something, and she never gets married, but I'm like the equivalent of that with no kids, but I've got 50 god kids, all at different ages, and they all Snapchat each other because they don't want anyone to ever see and have that collection of what it is that they have said.
Yeah.
In terms of like TikTok, like you're absolutely right. Like every brief was Instagram and a little bit of YouTube, or a lot of YouTube and a tiny bit of Instagram, and now it is TikTok.
Yeah.
Especially when you start working with, the Nikes or the Gen Z audiences, it is going to it's a completely different platform set. And equally, like, I'm 32. I've just, I hire people that are 17, 18, 19, 20 for that exact reason. They live, they can communicate, they can educate me. So I might be able to teach them something boring and a life skill they might need in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
But it is just watching them and understanding their behaviors also helps me and better educates me for kind of the clients. And yes, I can read any social survey or do an audit myself, but seeing it day to day is what kind of, again, like you with your kids, it kind of opens your eyes to what really is happening and what is trending.
Yeah. Like I could, if I use iPhone Messenger or WhatsApp to my kids, they would not reply. But if I Snapchat them, they'll come back in 10 seconds. It's funny. Like, it's like almost, well, the communication channel priorities. It's like, it doesn't, but the thing for you as a business, I guess that's a really good piece of advice, you know, by recruiting people, having a diverse age range actually is quite beneficial because, you know, in some ways there's a lot of talk at the moment as well in the advertising and marketing world, you know, about ageism, but, you know, on both ends, you know, people breaking into the industry who haven't got experience, but maybe people who've got lots of experience, you know, who are being bypassed because maybe they seem to be too old. But I think actually diversity really solves the problem because actually, I guess, you know, it will come down to some kind of segmentation of data, who uses what platforms and why, right? And so ultimately, as long as you have a diverse team, you can then hopefully help your clients solve their challenges, whatever they are. So if you win an account with Saga and you need any help, you can call me in now because I'm in the 50s category.
Not sure what my category would be now. Like, what's my age brand? I don't know. What I think is cool, my brother will probably, he's 8 years younger than me and he's constantly like, oh gosh, so embarrassing. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I like the way that you're saying that you, by bringing in younger people, so you can get to see how they use that, because I think that is, because I guess one of the other things that's really clear to me is the next big social platform, I don't think will come from Facebook or it won't come from Snapchat or TikTok. It will come from somewhere completely random. Yeah. You know, and, you know, I think because it always does. It always comes, like I remember when, you know, we were responsible for putting Andy Murray on Twitter, you know, way back in, what was that, God, 2007, you know, when no one was even using it. I think Chris Moyles on the Breakfast Radio Show had done a big thing about this new platform, and overnight it hit a tipping point, a bit like TikTok did last year, when it suddenly was like, went from, you know, every kid under 14 having it to all of a sudden grown-ups having it. And but it's the tipping point on these channels, but also it's like Clubhouse is an example. Clubhouse out of nowhere suddenly appeared, got really big. I think classic hype cycle, then falls down a bit, goes a bit quiet, and then all of a sudden, like pretty much like Musical.ly did, I think what will happen is something will happen there, and it will suddenly become really big again. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe. Well, I've seen it so many times before. Yeah. I mean, you know, I always say I've only ever got one thing wrong, and that was Google Glass. Like, bearing in mind, I was building websites in 93, you know, 2 years after Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. So I'm like, I've always got it right. You know, I was doing social media in 2004 when it was, you know, but that's really early on. Like, it was called Web 2.0 then. And I was, you know, doing paid advertising on Google when people just laughed and said, you know, show me the ROI on that. No one's ever going to click on a sponsored link. And then you got, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company in Google now as a result of it. But so I guess when people say things are fads, I always think, you know, but there's always a hype cycle. So it falls and then something happens, it maturity, and it goes. And, you know, I don't know. I think we'll see with Clubhouse what happens. But my guess is that obviously Twitter, Voices, and other things will come in and try and take that away. But yeah, so it's just, I mean, do you guys have to constantly look at new platforms and be aware of them, or not really? Do you think it's
100%? Any new platform, anything that's kind of emerging or being spoken about, or even people are trialing it, and again, it's servicing the clients, right? So we'll be proactive and be like, hey, and like at the start of the pandemic, I was chatting to my clients being like, right, we have to do TikTok. You have to be the early doors. Like, let's remember why, you know, brand X has 1 million followers. And every time you ask me why I've only got 10,000, it's because you weren't quick to adopt those channels, and then the algorithms kick in, and then you've got to pay to play. And so we went through this whole cycle of like, this is what TikTok is. This is why you need to be on it. You know, here's a shit ton of free examples of things you could do because we just want to help you do it properly. And then it would always be like, oh, one or two would go, okay, then. And then it'll get to the final contract, be like, oh, just do it on Instagram stories instead. And then months later was like, why haven't I done TikTok yet? I need to be on TikTok. I have to be on TikTok. I need a TikTok strategy. I need to do a TikTok campaign. And exactly the same thing with, you know, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces. It's us going, this is what it does. This is the opportunity that we think there is there. This can be what your USP is on that platform. do you want to just give it a go and see what happens? And you always get those brands where they're like, yeah, risk takers will go for it. And then you get the other ones that are heritage brands that go, well, we've got 30 rounds of sign off, so let's let someone else try it first, and then we can chat about it later on.
But I love that what you just said then about taking in those ideas and helping the brands understand what the potential is. I mean, even though they said to you, no, do it on Insta stories, they know that you do it. So when the market changed and all of a sudden they're thinking we should be doing this, at least they know that you can do it and that you've already come to them about it, right? So I think that's really, really great advice, by the way, for anyone listening. I think, make sure you're taking things to your clients that are maybe the natural evolution. I'm not saying take things that maybe you don't do completely or you've got no inclination to do, but, if you feel like your services are moving in a certain direction, I don't think it does any harm to say, listen, here's some ideas that you could do on these platforms, right? I think that's part of proactive account management.
It's really proactive, and it's also the upsell. It's showing them what you can do, and eventually it will convert, or one will convert that makes your time on all these other bits and pieces worthwhile.
Yeah. Do you what percentage of your business? I'm going to probably put you on the spot here. Sorry.
Okay, no, I'm here for it.
I'll see the market share of Instagram, don't worry. But I'm like, no, but do you know what percentage of your business do you think each month comes from new business and existing business? Would you?
Oh, good question.
I know it's probably one to really put you on the spot. Sorry,
it massively fluctuates. We've definitely got the hockey stick, which is like strategy, thinking, ideation. It's busy in Q1. Q2, you're then more in like executional stage, and then Q3 is a ton of new business, and Q4 is mental. What I would say in our space in the last 14 months, it's kind of constantly been at a cycle of mental. But also what we have done,
found a lot of new clients because you've grown and you're winning bigger clients because you've got bigger clients now, or
we've always had
big clients.
We've always had household clients. We've not necessarily had household clients spending decent money. Like one of the brands that we work on is a brand I really believe in. We lose money working on every single month, but I would never let it go because we've worked with them for 5 years.
Yeah.
And actually you get to experiment, you get to test different bits and pieces that then I'm always saying I can sell off that brand. That's why I work with that brand. And so what we've also done is like our existing clients have continued to grow. We've had some clients more within the kind of tech space who've had problems in the pandemic with factories, with the Suez Canal, and so those guys have kind of stalled things. And I would say we're probably 60% consistent. And then it's always this like 40% new, 30% new. At the moment, I've never seen inbound like it.
Yeah. Wow. See, so what you're saying is just really, is just a reflection on how things are right now. Like over the years, I've worked with some agencies that just, they were run by creatives or techies and just couldn't sell for toffee. And even those agencies I've spoken to, we're booming right now with new business, whereas normally they've always relied on clients. But hearing what you're saying, so that was weirdly, you've done a great anchor for my next question, which was, how, the biggest challenge in agencies when I normally go in, normally the first one is leads and new business. Then it's normally cash. So like there's cash flow issues around trying to fund the business in some shape or form. Then it tends to be people and HR. And then lastly, operational delivery. Right now, it's like whenever I speak to an agency, it's like need to find talent, need to find good people, got all about processes because we're so busy. We're trying to fix everything so we can deliver everything. Then it's cash. And then lastly, it's like sales. It's like, that never happens in agencies. So
recruitment at the moment is insane. It is trying to find talent.
Yeah.
The pace to which you have to recruit, which is why when the first question was how big's the agency, I was like, I think this big, but I know there's these 5 roles that I have to recruit, and then there's these other 5 roles, and obviously, as you know, the more senior those roles are, the longer their notice periods get. Like I just had a guy, I offered him, I won't say what the role is, but I offered him 40 grand salary, which is what he asked for. And he came back and said, well, actually, they've just counter offered and they've gone to 75. What? And I was like, huh? I was like, I can't, and he was like, well, they went to X. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. I'd rather move company. And then they just went, the money it would take us to pay a recruiter to backfill that position. And he was like, I'm obviously going to stick. I was like, yeah, mate, you crack on. I've literally had like 1 hour with you. I don't know whether you're good enough. And it's also so quick. So rightly or wrongly, I took a week's holiday. I worked 2 days while I was there. It wasn't a planned trip. And so I said, right, I'll do my interviews when I got back. And that was for a strategist role. And 3 out of 5 people that I was taking through to seconds then had offers. And I was like, I just wanted a few days to get like a tan and to have a beer and to chill out. And it's just, it's the pace of it that is insane.
Well, I think that, it's, I mean, what have you changed, would you say, in the past, couple of months around talent attraction and recruitment? Have you changed much at all to try and, obviously it sounds like you need to move a lot quicker now. That's definitely one thing. Definitely
the speed. The second is bringing in-house talent. So to obviously be firing from all cylinders constantly.
Interesting.
I am LinkedIn recruiter biggest fan.
Okay.
Which is not an ad. It is not a plug. But my God, I actually did this on a LinkedIn post like probably about 2 months ago. And I was like, I'd have spent like 40 grand on these roles and I've spent £400 on these roles. But also what it does is I'm trying to keep the roles quite vague because I'm finding out who's interested and who's looking at other jobs. And then I'm chatting to people that I definitely don't have a role for right now. But if I like them or they're culturally right for the business, I'm like, right, I'll hire you. I'll bring you in. And
we need to edit that clip out and send it off to LinkedIn. You'll probably find they'll retain you for that. And
then the other thing,
show sponsor, one or the other.
Yeah, there we go. And the other thing we did is I do quite a lot of mentoring just because I've always been very lucky and had people that have been, when you talked about ageism within this, I always had that at ASOS. They're like, how can this girl who's like 25 be managing 30 people? She's not ready. She can't, have a salary increase or whatever because she's only a child herself. And so, and I've had a lot of people that have really helped me and stuck their noses out in the past. And we try to do the same thing. And the busier I get, the more I try to encourage other people at the team to do the same thing. And we decided this year to do a career day where basically you could book a slot, anyone in the team. If you were graduating, if you were finishing school, didn't want to go to uni, weren't sure what to do, book and it was me, creatives, graphic designers. And I hired 3 people off the back of that day because they were the people that just stood out. And I was like, I didn't have roles for them. But again, I'm hiring ahead of the curve, knowing what's coming. And it's enabled me to kind of be better suited for that growth as well.
Yeah, it's funny, that's a really interesting point because I've always been a fan that you always recruit behind the sales curve. But there comes a point when I've only really seen the situation we're in now a couple of times. I think that I remember there was a time around 2005 when finally we moved off ISDN onto ADSL, and all of a sudden, because everyone had been, the internet was a joke. In 2000, I don't know if you've heard this story I told before, but when I got married, my father-in-law, which was the year 2000, which made it easy to work out how long I've been married, by the way. 21 years ago. The joke was my father-in-law said, and Spencer, he works in the internet business, and the whole room laughed out loud. Right. The internet was a joke in the year 2000. People thought it was Clubhouse, or cryptocurrency or Dogecoin, it's like, and so, but actually, I remember in 2005, suddenly it gained real momentum and I couldn't find anyone anywhere. And I think it was the first time that I had almost given up on that rule and said, I need to recruit people ahead of the curve here for the first time because the sales ain't stopping, and I know my marketing was strong enough. So I think it's a fine line to do that, but I think, that it does happen. It does, and I think that, the people in the last 2 months, because it's really, for me, it's been the last 3 months has been a problem generally, most of my clients needing more talent. It's been definitely the people who have strong personal brands at the front and the people who have in-house recruitment. They haven't struggled at all because they're giving it all the focus. They've got enough of a story that people want to work for them, and they're external enough, and they're happily sharing it. And second of all, they've got someone internally who can just keep those conversations flowing. And so when the owner's getting distracted, I
interestingly just went to one of the most well-known recruitment companies here in the UK, because I was like, right, there aren't enough hours in the day physically for me to do this. These are the kind of more niche roles, more expertise. They're like, oh, sorry, we can't take anything on because no one was recruiting. We put everyone on furlough. They then went and got in-house jobs, and we now can't recruit enough recruiters to help people with recruitment. And you're like,
that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but it makes sense. Everyone now has in-house recruitment. And that's one where I kick myself. We should have done it a lot sooner than we have done.
The thing that needs to, I mean, this is probably a bit of a political thing here, and I need to be careful when I go into these conversations, but because I'm not going to sit here be someone's campaigning, but my personal vision for a post-Brexit world was going to be a more global immigration, so we could get more diversity globally, all around the world, and we would get better talent in, because clearly we do have talent shortages in a lot of different areas, you know, especially around engineering and more technical stuff. But actually I would love to see a lot of investment going into high street retail, where people have lost their jobs from high street retailers in the past 12 months, and get those guys retrained in digital. Because actually I started my life in retail, and I think that most of the people I meet who started off in retail in their early years, they have really good work ethics. You know, they have to work for long hours. So working in an office afterwards is a heaven, right? But also you have the people skills, and you have the communication skills. And I think, you know, so I would like to see a lot more, like the people lost their jobs in the top shop changes and the high street, you know. I think getting those guys retrained is a priority, because the unemployment's still reasonably high, right? There is still areas where there's problems, but agencies and technology, and now I'm hearing recruiters, we all sound like we're struggling for talent. So do you think it's going to have an inflationary impact? Do you think that prices will have to go up, you know, because there'll be a supply demand of agencies, you know, because if you're saying people are demanding 75 grand to you now, the end of the day, you know, someone's got to pay for that, right? You know, your day rate has to go up, or your value selling has to go up.
Yeah, we have changed our minimum spend threshold.
Have you?
Yeah, we had to. And actually it's quite interesting then how many clients who've, you know, paid our minimum spends previously have gone, and we've multiplied it by 3, because it's wow. And also the demand for influencers too. So there's you know, yes, there's a million influencers, but they're more busy because they've got all the other competitor agencies to us, and then they've got their own brands that they're launching, and then they've got their own brand to maintain. And it's been surprising and interesting how many have just gone, yeah, absolutely, like we understand. But also we've had quite a lot of usually I ask for a wonderful grace period of 2 weeks from contract signing to get everything off the ground, and we're doing stuff which is like, no, it has to go live in 2 days, or actually that performs so well, can you just add X to it? Can you extend that contract by this much? And you know, that's great stuff for us to do. We can do it really easily, but it's quite interesting as they're seeing the performance. It's like buying the usage rights for longer, or increasing the media spend on other platforms, or actually, you know, why would we do a shoot for Above the Line when we've got this amazing influencer content here? And so for me, where my space is going is far more integrated in terms of like distribution of that content, which also helps with that kind of budget question too.
Yeah, great. So last question, really, where are you going now? I mean, when you started out, how big did you think you were going to get to? Did you have like a vision in your head?
No, my vision then was like, do not die. And
not that business.
No, for us, like we've had an office in the US for 18 months. I've had a very lean team in the US. I have just hired a number 2 to basically rock and roll. That's where we need to be. So that's a huge focus for the next 12 months. I'm learning so much stuff from the US, and also the challenges with the fact you can't get out there. I can't go and sit down and meet and chat and, you know, people by people, right? And everyone's had zoomed out, they're over it. And those challenges become a bit trickier in terms of kind of what's next more broadly. Like for me, it's just continuing with amazing content through great voices. It's just what is next from a platform, from a medium perspective, and kind of making sure we keep our eye on the ball that way.
Is it more geographical though? In your vision, do you kind of in the end see yourself offering more global. I mean, obviously you do global reach anyway from the UK, but having more local knowledge on local geographies, is that kind of where it's going?
So UK, US, we can do with our eyes shut. We've done quite a bit in Australia. European markets, we have freelancers on the ground for most key countries. The next one, once I've sorted the US, would be APAC. And again, inbound, mental. Every Singapore-based business is looking for influencers. And at the moment, it's trying to do what we do well and growing based on demand, but trying to also not lose a lot of work just because we don't have a team in Singapore yet.
Is there a lot of demand from, it's actually, just interesting, is there a lot of demand from Asia for Asia brands to work with, European influencers? Is that a thing? Like, it's
to a degree, but more they want localized, like platform shopping experience, user journeys that they're accustomed to. But what we might get is, we want X% of their audience to be here, and then the UK to be the secondary market, and then we would pull that audience demographic to pull that list of talent together.
Okay, interesting. All right, cool. So the future is looking more international, maybe, but team size, you don't have a number, or you don't go, I want to have 100 people or 1 million people, or when you tell the team where the vision or where you're going, is it just to keep creating great work for great brands?
They're so excited by where the business is going, and also I'm still maintaining the culture of the business. So sometimes I might need 10 people, but I'm like, look, guys, I've hired 5, but because they are so aligned to connect to the clients that we work with. And then it amazes me because you get people going, well, I'd far rather work an extra hour every day than have, someone who isn't aligned or isn't on the same journey as us. And people believe in the agency, they believe in the space that we work in, and I've got a very entrepreneurial team. And so they're kind of definitely on that roller coaster and enjoying the kind of ride with it. But I think in terms of how big we want to get, it would always be based on demand. I wouldn't be surprised, and my finance director's probably listening to this having a heart attack, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're over 100 by end of Q1.
Wow. Well, listen, I would say that, I've interviewed a lot of people on this show, and I think, your journey seems to have like a lot of realism to it in terms of your growth. To get to the size you are in 5 years is not easy. You are definitely have overperformed, but it's still, it feels like more sort of steady, fast controlled growth. Let me call it that, fast controlled growth. Whereas sometimes I, hear stories and it feels like it's out of control growth, but and I'm sure it probably has felt like it's out of control at times. But listen, I just want to say well done to you. Great success. I love the story. I have been following your content. I do think it's brilliant on LinkedIn.
Amazing.
And I think the work you do is great as well. And I wish you all the best success for that journey to 90 people, gosh, or 100 people, or whatever it is. And then, let me know when you start not knowing people's names. What's the number? Because you have a better memory than I have. So thanks for your time today.
No, of course, really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks everyone for listening, as always. Check out the show notes. We'll put more information there about, we'll put Sedge's LinkedIn profile, we'll reference her website, and we will also put some details around the new book. And that, for episode 50, halfway to 100, is a wrap.